Hello and welcome to Riverside Crafts. I'm Ray from Ray's Crafted Creations, and today I'm going to be looking at doing some heat embossing and some resist techniques using the embossing powders and Versamark to give you a little bit of a different sort of feel. So I'm just going to show you some of the things I've done this week so you can see what we're going to be looking at. I've used a mandala stamp here, and I've been heat embossed in white, and then used pixie powders to give me a different sort of background finish. This one, same with the heat embossing, but I've used the pixie sparkles. Here you go, in white again. This one was using the airless sprayers by Cosmic Shimmer, so I'll have a look at those. And this is using a silver pearl, which gives you a different finish. Again, more traditionally how we expect to see heat embossing with our black. Again, and here's a little bit of something else you can do with your pixie powders and Versamark. You can brush them across your Versamark and give yourself a different sort of shimmery finish, which I shall show you as well today. So let's start first with the beginning. So I'm going to get my stamp platform because I like to use that all the time. The stamp that I'm using is a mandala stamp. It's by Francois Reed, and it's from Woodware. We do have it in the shop, and we're going to be looking at Versamark. Now, Versamark, when you buy it, it looks lovely, nice and clean and bright. But if you use it and your stamps are ever so slightly dirty, it'll end up looking like this one does. It still works, it's still absolutely fine. It's the one I'm going to be using today, and there's nothing wrong with it, but just so you're aware that if you are trying to do something with a clear embossing powder, this will leave a grey tinge behind, whereas the other one won't. It's mainly because of the fact that it's got lots of little bits of ink up over the year, keeping it so it's got nothing. So I'm going to stamp again. I'm going to just put the ink pad across here. Now, just so to remind everybody, I can't read any comments at the moment. I'm hoping that you're there, and welcome, and it's nicer day today, so I'm hoping you're all about. If you have any questions, please leave them and I will answer them at the end. I will go through all your remarks and say hi and put everything down to say hi and answer any of your questions. Okay, so anyway, so here I am just doing my Versamark. Okay, now when you've done it, you can't really see where it was. Okay, it's not really very visible that you've actually done anything on the card, but it will be in a moment. Okay, so I'll just put that out of the way a second. I need a piece of paper. Okay, and I'm going to do the first one with some black, just so that you can see how it sticks, so you've got an idea of actually how it works, because obviously doing white on white, you can't really see what I'm going to be doing particularly easily. So I'm just going to sprinkle some of the black embossing powder over my card, give it a very gentle tap to take off any excess. Okay, now you can see that it's on there. At the moment, what you can see is ever so slightly what's the right word? It's matte, it's not a glossy finish. Okay, now if you've got any fingerprints on it, you can lightly dust them off. If not, the thing you should do beforehand, which I shall do when I do the white one, is I use a chalk bag, but I'll show you that when I use the white one in a minute. But with the black one, I wanted to show you how it looks when you first do it, because you can't really see it otherwise. Okay, and I wanted to show you so you could see how I do my heat embossing completely, so you can actually visually understand what I'm doing. Now I use a pair of reverse tweezers to clamp this in so that I don't burn my hands. This is my heating tool, and I tell you what I use an old plant pot, because stands and heat tools are useless. So I put it in an old plant pot to help resist myself temptations and any damage. So I'm not going to pick it up, I'm not going to touch the hot bit, but also it's not going to sort of end up sat on a load of cardstock and causing a problem. Now I heat from underneath, because I don't want to blow away my embossing powder, but B, I can actually see when it starts to change, because it goes glossy. I don't know if it's close enough to the camera for you to be able to see that, but as you heat it and the embossing powder melts, it goes glossy. Can you see the change? It becomes more black on this case. Okay, all right, so you can sort of really see how it's changing now. Now, if you overheat it, if you overdo it, what will happen is you will get, it will go matte again. It will lose its shine and goes matte. So if you overheat it, it will go matte. And if you hold your cardstock too close to your heat tool, it will scorch it. So just be aware that you do need to leave a gap and bits, but you will, if you're not careful, end up with scorch marks on your cardstock. Right. So that is now heat embossed. Okay, now can you see all this spatter just here that I've got? That's because I didn't use my chalk bag. Okay, I'm just going to show you now what it looks like when I'm going to colour the back in. I'm going to use a bit of a pixie powder to start with, just to show you. Okay, so I've got a pixie powder here. I'm not going to go mad and put lots on. I'm going to be very gentle and just tap it. Okay, when you're buying an embossing powder to do this sort of thing with, a detail one is better. They want to be a nice fine finish. You don't want chunky embossing powder. It wants to be nice and fine. So you're looking for a detail one. Different companies have different makes and things, and they all pretty much work the same. So that's how I get my background then, and then that gives me my finish. But what happens is, wherever is embossing powder, the pigment just rolls off it. It doesn't stick to it. It will just stay away from it, so it won't stay there. Okay, if you want to, at this point, you can do this, and you can take off your excess water and just make sure that, and give your a buff, so that you keep that really nice shine from the embossing powder. Okay, so that's how you start. That's how it would look. All right, so now I'm going to do it with white, so that you can see the difference when I finish it off. Okay, so I'm going to do a white one. I'll show you how you do it if I'm going to start it all off properly. So you'd use your heat embossed chalk pad, which comes like this little bag of powder, and you're just going to gently rub it across your cardstock. The reason that you do that is your fingers leave greasy marks behind, and because you leave those greasy marks behind, your fine embossing powder is attracted to them. Okay, so the best way to make sure you don't get any extra bits on it is to actually go across it. Okay, so I'm going back in with my Versamark again. Okay, and I'm just going to give it a nice, it's quite a sticky ink. Okay, if you do it on dark card, it sort of leaves a greasy mark behind that, sort of in the pattern that you actually stamped it on, which is why it got called a watermark originally, and that was what it was thought about using it for, was to create a watermark on your work, which looks really pretty. There's a different way of doing things again. Okay, so I think I've got that one down enough. Just going to check that I've got it all over. One of the things about having a slightly dirty pad is that I can see the Versamark, so that has a benefit to me for that on that one purpose. Okay, now I'm going to put my piece of paper down again. Okay, and I'm going to use a white embossing powder. Okay, now there are loads out there, and we have different ones in the shop and bits, so it's not a problem to go and find some. And that, I know we normally have it in, because that's where I tend to buy it from, I have to say, mainly because it's one of those things I don't remember to get. So again, I'm holding it in my clip, more so that I don't end up with me getting it everywhere, because because I'm very good at doing that. Just put my lid back on so I don't knock the stuff over. There we go. Right, again, I'm going to heat from underneath. Okay, and when you are using a white embossing powder, what tends to happen is you will see it go glossy, and the powder itself is often quite grey, so when it goes it actually looks whiter. Quite like these vintage style stamps that you get from Woodware by Francois Reed, because they've got a lot of detail in, so they actually work really well to do this sort of technique, because you've got a lot of detail there which helps you, give you a bit more of a difference in that way. Let's give the table a bit of a wipe over because I'm always in a mess. Right, here we go. Let's put that down. Now you can't really see the white embossing very well, I don't suppose. Let me have a look so I can get it on the camera. There you go. Can you see it now? So I'm having a look there, and now I'm going to put some a different colour pixie powder over it. I'm going to use a blue here. This one's Midnight Blue. It's one of my favourites, I have to say. I use this one quite a lot. And I'm just going to sprinkle it on and wake it up again with a little bit of water. Here we go. Let's get the water out, and you get some beautiful colours come through with this one. Okay, now you can see how you're getting this nice sort of blanket look. Now, because it's going, I want it to be a resist, I'm going to have to sort of spray a bit more water around the edges, because I want the outside to have some colour. Okay, so I'm just going to take it across. Now, if I've got a bit that hasn't got any colour in it and I'm not going, I'll just use a brush and pull that colour down to the outside of where I'm going to be, so that I've got that definite blue around my outside edge. Okay, just because it's going to help me see the finished article at the end. All right, so it's just making sure I've got the blue all the way around what I'm looking at. I'm just going to heat that up a second, more to just set the colour into the outside a bit, so that it's there, because it's quite wet. I've not really noticed a difference between drying it using heat or just letting it dry naturally for the pixie powders. I've not really noticed any difference in colour as such. How far it moves, definitely. So that might help. Oh, just a reminder, the cardstock I'm using is the Sheena Douglas cardstock, her stamping card, mainly because that's what I've got in my cupboard, not for any other reason. You don't need to use watercolour card to do this, because you're not really spending a lot of time putting colour in everywhere and doing, so it's not a matter of it all being wonderfully sort of coloured in. It's just sort of amount it getting mixed. So there you go. Can you see the resist now on the stamp? You get a beautiful image, which is quite classy. Okay, so it gives you a really nice finish and a bit of a different look. Right, so while I'm just on that particular stamp, I have got it stamped again in another colour, in the same colour, and I'm going to use the airless mister, because I want to show you another way of using it like this as a resist. Now, these airless misters, if you can hear, there's a ball bearing in it to mix it. Okay, which is quite. So you need to give it a good shake so that you've mixed the mica in, because they have got a spray mica, they have got a fine mica in them. Now, if you just do it a little bit, you sort of get the odd bigger splot. You see, if you really press, you get a very fine finish. So it's more about how you press down the top to how much of a colour you get. Okay. So that's sort of, I'm going to use another one here. I've only got 3 colours, but I found that the 3 colours that I've got mix really well, and they will naturally create other colours when they hit in each other. So I tend, look, you see how I'm just getting some nice big spots because I'm just doing a little bit less sort of thing, and I just want a bit more colour on the mandala, so I'm just going to take my colour there. All right, now I'm going to leave that. I'm just going to give that a quick dry. Right, and I'm just going to dry off this a bit because some of the mister is on the white, and what I want is the white to be really bright white. So I'm just going to give this a quick dust, as it were. Okay, so it brings up my bright white again. If I've got blue or whatever on it and it's staining it, it just helps. If it's just a little bit of a damp tissue, you just don't go over your white, and it will take off any bits that you don't, any colour in places you don't want it, and that gives you a really nice finish for your cards. It sort of gives you a different sort of perspective. Takes away the black lines that we always end up with if we're not careful, and that it just gives you a totally different feel. Okay, I've just got one more to show you. This is again a stamp by Francois, a different stamp. I just wanted to show you it used it in different stamps, because sometimes we tend to use the same stamp for everything, and it's nice to have a different sort of thing. So here's a different colourways. Right, this one's quite green. Put the tealy blue back with it, I think, and it'll go quite green on this, because while it's been very blue before, because I've got the green as an accent, it's going to keep that green. Okay, I'm going to dry off the excess around the outside that I sprayed everywhere. Just quick dry off. Now we've got these misters in the shop at the moment, and I was in there on, what day am I? Friday now. I was in there on Wednesday, and I met a lady who was asking me about them, and were they any good? And my answer is yeah, they're lovely. I really like them. They give me a really nice spray, an even spray, without any difficulties, and they give me a really nice finish. So that's quite a nice way of doing and giving something a bit different. Now, bearing in mind that I've used the same blue, look at how different it looks because I've used a different colour with it. Okay, and that it's mixed slightly with it. So this, although that's the same blue, it's really changed how it appears. All right, which gives you a bit of more of a range of what you're doing, rather than just staying as it is. Right, let's do the next one. Where's this stamping platform? Because this is the one I love doing this. This is such a nice, relaxing thing to do as well. Great to do with kids. It's sort of like a magic reveal when they get, because you can stamp this up and then go back into it in a little while, and they can sort of like, let's find what's on the stamp. So I'm going to do this one first, and then I'll do another. I'll change it over to a different stamp so that you can see a different colourways. Okay. I know different stamp because I'm going to use the same colour, because I like the colour that this one, when I do it in gold, I think it looks stunning. So I shall do that, and plus as well, I think you'll see it better. So again, I'm just pushing down with my stamping platform, which I absolutely adore, because if I haven't stamped it right the first time, I can go back in, and I am not naturally a tidy stamper. I do tend to get it everywhere. Right, so I'm going to put that on there for a minute. Now, with a very dry, gentle brush, you don't want a heavy paintbrush, you don't want something that's got damp on it. A little makeup brush works really well. A kabuki type brush works. I'll show you in a minute what I use. I use a kabuki brush, which is, believe it or not, is a makeup brush, but it works brilliantly. So I'll put my powder on. Here's my brush, really light and fluffy, and literally I'm just going to go round and round very gently with my pixie powder. Okay, I'll put a little bit more on, so I just want a bit more colour, so I'm going to put a bit more on and get a bit more of the colour. And as I just go in, there we go, And there you go. I have this beautiful gold topper now that has a lot of shine on it. Okay, and if you would, you could be forgiven for thinking that that's been gilded, or oh, I don't know, what's it called when we now put all our stuff together? I can't remember, my brain's not working, but there we are. Foiled, that's the word I was thinking about. Could you almost believe that that had been foiled, and it gives you a beautiful finish for a topper for a card. So that's a nice way of doing it. And that's just the rich gold pixie powder, so it's nothing particularly fancy or amazing, but it's just a rich gold. Right, I'm going to just change my stamp because I want to show you again how it looks when you do it with something slightly different, to show you that it's not just that particular image that looks fantastic. I'm just going to wipe my stamp over because it's got quite a lot of Versamark on it, because I've been using it today quite a bit, so I'm just going to clean off some of that so it's not got the sticky on there. Let's put it back in its folder. Right, now I'm going to use this one with butterflies on, which is another one by Francois Reed from Woodware. I like Woodware stamps because they're not horrendously expensive, but they are beautiful stamps and they last nicely. They give a nice clean image when I stamp with them, and I'm not having to break the bank to buy it, so I like that about them quite a lot. They are a polymer stamp. They do discolour a bit after time, but it doesn't affect their stamping. I have got some that are a little bit yellow, and if you use StazOn, they do stain, but all polymer stamps will do, because StazOn is a permanent ink. And I have to say, it's not an ink I tend to use very often. Okay, so let's put that down. Okay, now you can see a little bit more now on this one. I don't know if you can see it. You can probably see from having a slightly dirty stamp. I've got marks on my card from it before, but because of what I'm going to do, it's not really a massive issue. Okay, I'm going to change my colour slightly, and I'm going to use a copper because I've got that just behind me, and I like pixie powders. I have quite a few of them. Let's get this coming out nicely. Give it a good tap. Right. Okay, now gently again with the brush, you're just going to give it some real nice gentle swirls and just putting it on. Okay. If you have an area that's not covering, just go back in with the powder and sort of put it in, and it will gradually take it up. So if you're not happy with how it's covering, you can go back in and put more powder on it. There we go. So another beautiful topper for a new card. It's a nice way of doing things to give yourself a different finish. I'm just going to go over what I've done just quickly to remind you of everything that I've done. And when I'm doing heat embossing and I'm using my Versamark. So the first thing, if I'm going to heat emboss, is I use my chalk pad over my piece of cardstock so that I don't have my greasy fingerprints on it. When I've done that, I then use my Versamark and I stamp in place. Okay, so then when I've stamped and I've got I tip my my embossing powder over it, I heat from underneath and I wait for it to go glossy, and then I can play. So here we go. Let's go back through my pile of bits I've just been playing with this today. So that is just Versamark on its own, dusted over with some pixie powder. That's the same. Heat embossed and spritzed with the Cosmic Shimmer Airless Misters. Same pixie powders after heat embossing. that's using all 3 of the airless misters that I've got, which is I've got the pinky purple, a blue and the greeny colour, because they were the sort of colours that I thought would mix well for me. So I've done that. That's another one done the same way, and again with the pearl, which gives a really gentle slim shimmer, with the white. This was using clear embossing powder with a sparkle, which gives me the card colour from behind, so which is quite nice. White, the white again. There we go. And then just to finish off again, just a reminder, Versamark stamping and a little bit of your pixie powder dusted across the top. I hope you found that interesting today. Next time, I think if I remember rightly, Caroline and I were talking, and we're going to be talking about which ink do I use, because we've got so many different inks out there now and most of us can't remember which one we're doing. So keep your eye out for that one, because the next one will be about which ink should I use and why. Okay, so thank you very much, everybody. Really nice. Hope you enjoyed watching it, and I'll talk to you all again soon. So take care. Bye.